Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. So yeah, let's wrap with some transfer stuff. And it's funny, right? Because I've told you guys this over the last couple weeks, but transfer stuff, this is the new wave of college basketball offseason content. And frankly, college football offseason content too. I mean, I've done stuff on the transfer portal on college football on this podcast as well. But with high school players becoming less and less relevant, with some of them not even choosing college basketball, so many of these schools are basically choosing to do their recruiting out of the transfer portal. I will tell you, and I've told you definitively, there are more good players currently in the transfer portal right now than there have been in entire off seasons in the past. And so what I've done is a couple things. One, I keep a list every single week on Kentucky Sports Radio. You can go there and search my name. And I do an updated list of the National Big Board top 20 players in the transfer portal in college basketball. My newest list will be up on Thursday, and it's going to be reflective, very similar to the list that I give you in a minute. But I've also done it on this podcast a few times. I obviously talked about transfers the other day when it came to Kellen Grady committing to Kentucky, Justin Powell committing to Tennessee. And so what I want to do now is give you an update on the top 20 players currently in the transfer portal, because again, this stuff is huge. These guys will all have impact in college basketball next year. And my guess is, I bet a lot of you don't even realize that some of these guys are currently in the portal. So let's give you my top 20. You guys loved it last time I did it. Here goes. Number 1, Marcus Carr, guard, Minnesota. Marcus Carr, for people who do not know, 19 points per game, 5 assists last year at Minnesota. Richard Pitino gets fired. He enters the transfer portal. What I will say is there's a lot to like whenever you're a guard who averages 19 and 5 in the Big Ten. That's a guy that could play anywhere in college basketball. On the flip side, he's not a great three-point shooter, 31%. He also gets a little shot happy at times, and I think if he goes to a big-time program, he is going to have to rein that in a little bit. With that said, it'll be interesting to see, what happens with his recruitment going forward. He is a guy who has said that he plans on testing the NBA draft process. He is not going to commit to another college. Now, on the flip side, I think I heard Matt Jones from Kentucky Sports Radio say that he feels like Kentucky is in pretty good shape with Marcus Carr. So we will see. He is, in my opinion, the best player in the transfer portal. I don't necessarily know if he is anywhere close to making a decision or if he's going to play out the NBA draft process, but I love Marcus Carr and what he could potentially bring to a college basketball program next year. Number 2, it's the same guy who was number 2 last time around. That is Walker Kessler, the forward from North Carolina, who is now kind of famous because he's basically the guy that drove Roy Williams to retirement. I don't know if that's exactly true, but there was a little report when Roy Williams retired that basically he's tired of the transfer portal stuff. He's tired of having to re-recruit his whole roster. And Walker Kessler was a McDonald's All-American last year, came to North Carolina, didn't put up great stats, 3 points, 2 rebounds per game, but he was buried on the bench. And there was a reason Roy Williams was mad when he left, and there is a reason that this guy is one of the most coveted players currently in the transfer portal. He's big, he's athletic, he can play in the post, he can stretch the floor, and I believe he's going to be a difference maker wherever he ends up next year. The early reports are that Auburn and Gonzaga, 2 schools that he seriously considered coming out of high school, are the favorites. Obviously, look, big guy that can run the floor. Gonzaga kind of feels like a Gonzaga thing, so we will see, but he is number 2 on the list. Number 3 on the list, a new name. Timmy Allen, who played the last 3 years at Utah, okay? Kind of guy that's kind of off the radar. You guys don't watch Utah basketball. I get it. It's my job. But he is first team All Pac-12 last year after averaging 17 points per game this past season. Another one. He's not a great three-point shooter, 27%. But when you talk about a guy averaging 18 a game, 17 a game in the Pac-12, in a scenario, keep in mind, where the Pac-12 was way better than we thought it was, and oh, by the way, this guy had very little help around him. It shows you how good of an offensive player that he is. He entered the portal about a week ago. As best I can tell, there are no real updates. He did meet with the new Utah head coach, Craig Smith. I think he will consider returning to Utah. But if he doesn't, I think he'll stay on the West Coast. What I've heard, he's from L.A. Wouldn't surprise me if he ends up at USC. He played for the Compton Magic. The Compton Magic, a lot of the guys that played on the Compton Magic are at USC, including Evan and Isaiah Mobley. Evan Mobley will be pro. Isaiah Mobley probably won't be. So USC is kind of what I've heard, but it's kind of quiet. Number 4, I would say is probably the single most shocking player to enter the transfer portal this offseason, outside of maybe Walker Kessler, and that's Adam Miller at Illinois. So Adam Miller at Illinois, for people who don't know, former top 40 high school prospect, was the Illinois High School Player of the Year, is a guard, went to the University of Illinois, and started every single game for Illinois. And so you talk about where we are with this transfer stuff. Usually when a kid transfers, it's for one of three reasons. Either he's homesick, he's not playing, or the team isn't very good. Well, he wasn't homesick because it was his state school. He was Mr. Basketball in the state of Illinois. He was playing. He started every single game. And the team, you can't say the team wasn't good. They were number one seed, won the Big Ten tournament. So this was shocking when this news hit, especially because we knew Ayo Dosunmu was going to go pro. And so you kind of expect, like, okay, this is the guy that's going to take over. He's a little bit of a combo guard. The ball probably won't be in his hands, but he's a really, really good player. Top 40 prospect, like I said. As best I can tell, it feels pretty early to speculate where he'll go, but a really talented player. Number 5, another new name, also from the Pac-12. Another guy you've probably never heard of. His name is Matt Bradley. He was the leading scorer at Cal. If you forgot, and how could you not forget, because Cal stinks, Mark Fox is the head coach at Cal, and I give this kid Matt Bradley a lot of credit. He had a really good freshman year. His coach that recruited him gets fired, Y. King Jones, and he could have left, and he stuck it out with Mark Fox. He gave him a legitimate chance. But Mark Fox stinks. The program's going in the wrong direction. He has one to 2 years of college basketball left, and he said, I want another shot somewhere else. So he decides to transfer. He averaged 18 a game. He actually was a great three-point shooter, 38%. And I think this is a guy that could play anywhere in college basketball. 6'4". He's not a super big guard, but he's physical. He can get to the rim, average about 5 free throws per game this year. And like I said, 18 points per game, 38% from three when you are the focal point of defenses. That guy is awesome. Matt Bradley at number 5. Micah Peavy at number 6. Micah Peavy is a transfer from Texas Tech, one of the players that decided to hit the portal following the departure of Chris Beard. For people who don't know much about Micah Peavy, he is a guy, Chris Beard told me last offseason, he said, Aaron, I don't know what a McDonald's All-American is supposed to look like, but I don't know how this guy wasn't a McDonald's All-American. In other words, he was a top 30 or so prospect that got left off the McDonald's All-American team, but Chris Beard believed that he was one of the 24 best players in the high school class of 2021. Micah Peavy played last year at Texas Tech. Didn't play a ton, but he's a big 6'7" wing. He looks like an NBA player when he walks on the floor. Well coached. His father is an iconic high school basketball coach in Texas. And he decided to enter the portal. No word yet on if he'll consider going back to Texas Tech to play for the new head coach, which was Chris Beard's lead assistant. No word yet on if he will actually decide to go to Texas and play for Chris Beard, but Micah Peavy at number 6. Number 7, Trey Mitchell. He's been in the portal for a while. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on him, but Trey Mitchell is the number 7 player. Went to UMass last year, averaged 18 points, 8 rebounds per game. Interesting thing on him, he is a former top 100 recruit. He followed his high school coach to UMass. He decides to leave. The high school coach leaves UMass. So I don't know if the guy is going to follow his high school coach again. I don't know if you got to hire the high school coach to get him. It's an interesting deal, but not much news on his transfer stuff. But when you average 18 and 8 a game as a sophomore, you're really good. Number 8, really good player that I love, Boogie Ellis from Memphis. So Boogie Ellis was part of that famed James Wiseman, Penny Hardaway, you guys don't want the smoke recruiting class. Well, maybe we didn't want the smoke because James Wiseman barely played. Precious Achiuwa went pro after a year. Boogie Ellis is now in the transfer portal. This was a kid who originally committed to Duke, decided to go to Memphis instead of Duke. And it was an up and down first year. He averaged about 9 a game, but this year he really blew up. He was Memphis' 6th man. He averaged 10.5 points per game. I'll tell you, he's small. He really only does one thing well, and that's shoot the basketball. He shot about 40% from 3 this year. He had 27 in a game against Houston in the conference tournament. And I think he's really good. He can only do one thing, shoot the basketball, but he can do it really well, and he will add something to any team that signs him. As far as his recruitment, I think it's pretty clear that he will probably head to the West Coast. He's from San Diego originally. My hunch is either San Diego State will end up signing him or possibly USC. USC was the first power conference program to offer him out of high school, so there's ties there. But I would say Boogie Ellis at number 8. Number 9, Darryl Morsell, who is one of those seniors that I just mentioned, who has an extra year of eligibility, and he's got all his options open. He may transfer. He may stay at Maryland. He may go pro. But he put his name in the portal. Really good. He's kind of like Boogie Ellis in the sense he only does one thing well, except he doesn't shoot. He plays great defense. He was the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year at Maryland this year, took a broken nose against Michigan. He is just a bulldog on the perimeter. I think he was the best perimeter defender in college basketball. He will bring toughness to any program that he goes to. Darryl Morsell at number 9. Again, we'll see if he actually plays college basketball. Number 10, Armaan Franklin from Indiana. Listen, big Mike Woodson, big energy Mike Woodson, Mike effing Woodson, as I like to call him. Listen, I was wrong on Mike Woodson. Mike Woodson has killed it since he got to Indiana. He's pulled a bunch of players out of the transfer portal. He added Xavier Johnson. Xavier Johnson is the transfer from Pitt. He added him late on Wednesday. And this is the last piece. Go get Armaan Franklin. He was Indiana's second leading scorer this year. He was Indiana's best three-point shooter. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the second that Armaan Franklin got hurt, that was when Indiana started to struggle. He's in the portal. He has talked about the possibility of returning to Indiana, but Armaan Franklin, we will see if he decides to return, but really good player, averaged 11.5 per game at Indiana last year. I'll try to make these next ones quick. Noah Locke, guard, Florida, same deal as Boogie Ellis, great three-point shooter, doesn't really do much else, but man, can he shoot the basketball, 40+% this year. And he's got a long list of suitors. UConn, Louisville, Providence. He is going to end up somewhere really good and have a really big impact. Number 11, new name to the portal on Tuesday, Liam Robbins. He played at Minnesota last year. He actually only played at Minnesota for 1 year. Transferred in from Drake. Drake has the best season they've ever had, which you feel bad for the kid. But he still came to the Big Ten, averaged 11 points, and he led the Big Ten in blocks at 2.5 per game. I don't know if he wants to transfer back down. I don't know if he wants to transfer to another high major, go play for Richard Pitino at New Mexico. But the bottom line is this guy's an NBA player. Really good feel. Liam Robbins, number 11. Number 12, no, Liam Robbins was 12. Xavier Pinson, 13. Xavier Pinson, we know the deal, played at Missouri, second leading scorer. He entered the portal. It seemed as though it was down to Arkansas and Auburn. Arkansas has taken 2 commitments from 2 guards, Chris Likes from Miami, Audi's Tony from Pitt. And so because of it, I don't even know if Arkansas is still in the mix. I think he probably ends up at Auburn. Number 14, another player that was part of that vaunted Memphis recruiting class, DJ Jeffries. Originally committed to Kentucky, goes to Memphis, was actually playing well as a freshman last year, gets hurt, and this year he really struggled. He averaged about 9.5 points per game, but he's got a big NBA body, about 6'8", 6'9". Don't know where he'll end up. My hunch is he's from Mississippi. I've heard some buzz about Mississippi State, but that remains to be seen. Speaking of big wings, Earl Timberlake from Miami. Could have been a one-and-done this year at Miami, but he got hurt, decided to transfer. No real buzz on his recruitment. Number 16, a guy that I'm probably higher on than most. Rocket Watts played 2 years at Michigan State, played off the ball as a freshman with Cassius Winston, was really good. But look, Tom Izzo tried to put him on the ball this year. It didn't work, and so Rocket Watts has decided to pursue other options. Almost committed to Louisville out of high school. LSU is in the mix. There's a lot of schools that appear to be in the mix with Rocket Watts, but I really like him. Number 17, Damari Burnett, another guy that's just been kind of hanging around the portal. Was a McDonald's All-American at Texas Tech. Entered the portal in January and is kind of waiting to see how rosters shake out. I would expect him to ultimately choose Alabama, maybe LSU. His decision should be coming soon. 18, Christian Bishop. He was Creighton's starting center this year. Thought it was weird he decided to enter the portal. I thought it was actually kind of a perfect fit for him at Creighton. Averaged 11-6 this year. Weird list of schools. We'll see what happens. It's early. Jaden Gardner, number 19. He is a player from East Carolina. Averaged 18-8. Down to 5 schools: LSU, Arkansas, Virginia, NC State, and Miami. And number 20, I don't even know how to say this name. Stanley Umude, I believe is how you say his name. He played at South Dakota, but he averaged 21.5 points per game this year, and he is, in my opinion, the best mid-major player in this transfer portal right now. Early buzz is Arkansas, but I'm telling you, this guy's a high major player. He actually entered the portal 2 years ago and almost decided to commit to Arizona. Instead, ended up coming back to play college basketball at South Dakota. Now he is in the portal, and he thinks he ends up, I believe, at Arkansas.